The only thing we have to
Beer.
is
Beer.
itself.
Beer. So many choices.
Only no function beer well without.
Woohoo! Beer!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer Busters. We're going to bring you the news and reviews of your favorite brews. My name is Dan Baker, joined as usual by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hefner.
and of course the demented and fermented
Wayne Baker.
We're back socially distant. We're doing it over the internet again. It was nice to get outside and go to an event, but I forgot how tired I can get because I am old.
Also, our last episode was 3 hours.
It was,
long.
and
worth every minute, but
right. And to anyone who listened to the whole thing, thank you. It was a very important episode and very sentimental episode to us. And I figured I would leave as much in as possible because there was a lot that was said about Bart and a lot of reconnections that were made. And I figured it was good to just throw all of it in there. There might have been a couple things here and there that didn't make the final cut. I think I have like one legit outtake, but everything else is in there, including Timothy F. White Jr.'s phone number.
Well, you say the episode was 3 hours, but we sat at that table for 5 hours.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
We
so
did.
there's a lot of beginning and end, pre-roll, whatnot that got cut. But
I will say, if you're having trouble getting through such a long episode, I understand, but obviously it's worth it for Bart. But also, Kevin was our last guest of the episode, and you really need to listen to Kevin whenever he's on the show. So,
that's true. That's true.
shout out Kevin Keller.
We love you, Kevin. We love you. But yes, we are back, socially distant and Zooming for this one. And we have a lot of cool stuff that's happening. I've been sipping on a beer from the featured brewery for this one. Coming to us from Devil's Eye Brewing Company, we have...
I'm Rob Getz. I'm the head brewer, solo brewer, head brewer, only brewer at Devil's Eye Brewing Company.
When you're the only one, you get to make up the title, whatever you want to call it.
Head brewer and master brewer because there's no other brewer.
Perfect.
I like that.
It works.
How about just the brewer? With
The
a
brewer,
capital T?
yes. Yeah,
Well, Rob, thank you for joining us, man. Thanks for taking the time.
yeah. I'm glad to be here.
So, Dan, you're actually the first one that met Rob and made the initial connection. Would you like
Yeah.
to reshare that story that you remember
Yes,
so vividly?
that I've been reminded of. So, what was it? Beginning of June, middle of June, went to the Mount Hope Brew Fest, and it was great. It was amazing. I wanted to be a civilian that day, just go out and drink with a couple of friends I was with. And early on in the day, I stopped by the table, and it was the Saison, and it just blew me away. And I remember I thought, Wayne would really like this, too. It was channeling you. And I gave out one business card that day, and it was to Rob. And we have the episode today. So, Rob, I'm glad you followed through on it. I'm glad we can make this work.
Yeah, me too. I was really surprised. I went over there and I don't remember what brewer we were talking to, but he gave me some special batch of something and I was tasting it. And then somebody I had never seen before just was like, I don't normally do this, but I want you to take my business card. And I'm like, wow, really? Like I'm a professional brewer or something.
I know, right?
Yeah, that was it was Brian Mills. It was at the end of the day that we met up there. And it was a Black Forest something that we still haven't drank yet. I still have the can of it in the fridge.
It was so good.
It was amazing.
It was fantastic.
And it was like 4%, which
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense in my brain, but I will take a beer with that much power being that light in ABV because
Yeah.
I need that these
I just
days.
remember you sending me incoherent texts, and I was able to deduce that you were with Brian Mills. So I was texting Brian, and I was like, "Are you at a beer fest right now with Drunk Dan?" And yes,
And he confirmed.
Yeah, you know what happened after that Brewfest too? And I know we got housekeeping stuff we got to do too, but whatever.
Follow us on the internet at Beerbusters.
Yeah, you know what to do. So after that, the friends I was with, it was my buddy Jared, who was a previous guest of the show from way the fuck back
like
when.
episode
Yeah.
8.
Yep, yeah, and the file got corrupted, and we lost like 20 minutes of audio. We went to the brewery there afterwards for a beer or two, and then we were like, hey, well, let's get food somewhere. I made us go out to Evergreen. I got their hot chicken sandwich because it is my second favorite hot chicken sandwich I've ever had, and then I had another hot chicken sandwich that night.
speaking of hot chicken sandwiches you love, I was at Mad Chef yesterday.
Oh.
And it was the first time I've been there since the expansion,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
which it's really, really cool. Now, obviously, they're still working on that space, but there are some tables over there. But it's like I had like a proud mama moment walking in there and seeing, like, knowing them from back in their homebrew days, and then like when they first opened the brewery, and now to see them owning that entire part of that complex. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the food is still just as amazing
Oh,
as
of
it
course,
was before.
Of course. I don't think I ever actually had their hot chicken sandwich because I never got to go out that weekend, which means I also never got to break a mirror while they were expanding.
Oh, I forgot about the breaking the mirrors. That's right.
Oh, well, I don't need any
Yeah.
more bad luck in my life.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, I will tell you what they have. Well, of course, I drank Johnny Doe, but Rich was there earlier in the week and picked up some crowlers. And Greg was nice enough to get us a crowler of the strawberry Hefeweizen, which they usually don't sell to go. But I'm super glad he made an exception for us because that beer is fucking legit.
Nice.
Like, you know how Chef is like with food and beer. Like, it's none of this like fake bullshit. Like, it's real ingredients, and it just tastes like the most amazing clean Hefeweizen with just like fresh strawberries in it. It's like everything you want a strawberry Hefeweizen to be, and it was divine.
That's awesome.
Of course, I had to have Johnny Doe when I was there.
Well, yeah.
I say I wouldn't care about the flavor just because the name got me right away. As a dad, all beer labels, for the most part, is just like everything's a great play on words. And also, as an English major, I do love to, I do love a good turn of phrase.
Yeah.
But Hefeweizen got me right away. I was just like, oh, that's hilarious.
That's really good. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's a really
fine.
good name.
They
Steph,
really play up on how like he's a chef and he's Puerto Rican, and like there's a lot of really, really cool beer names that are play on words that are related to Francisco. So
Yeah. Also currently in Puerto Rico, I
Yeah.
believe, right now.
Yeah, he's
I just saw
visiting
on
family.
Facebook. Yeah.
Shout
Shout out, Chef.
Steph, you named Johnny Doe, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I was at Oakbrook yesterday after a golf tournament, and I had, of course, Bloody Moose because I had to. And I was talking to Kyle. He's about to move to Montana, and he's very much looking forward to going off the grid for a little bit. But I had Bloody Moose, and I checked it in, and my comment was, remember, I named this beer. This is my Pennsylvania legacy. He changed the name of it to Dan's Bloody Moose, and I'm so happy.
That's cool.
I'm so happy about that.
That's cool.
Yeah. But we have, all these other breweries who are, friends of the show, family of the show, and
hold on. Who was the one that used one of Wayne's libation or fabrication and actually turned it into a beer?
Jonathan, Stolen Sun.
It was at Stolen Sun.
Yeah, I forget which one
So
it was.
all three of us have
we've officially named
beers.
actual
Look at
beers.
that.
Yes.
Go us.
Woo, we made it.
Woo. But yes, we do have, a long-running history of friends and family of the show, and I'm very excited to welcome Rob into the extended Beer Busters family. It's exciting. All right,
I'll have to let you guys name beers from now on.
That's just one.
Just
That's
the
all
one,
we
yeah.
ask
Pretty
is
good
one.
at it.
Yeah, I mean, we do sometimes give brewers long-running lists
Yeah,
of
I mean,
names.
I like to just jot down like non sequiturs that come out during the show. So I've already written down another hot chicken sandwich, which I think would be a good name for a beer.
I don't
it
know
would
if
be.
I agree.
Yeah, another hot chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
In fact, it builds in the whole ordering aspect. It's like, I will have another hot chicken sandwich.
Yes.
I will have another hot chicken
I will have
sandwich.
another.
But
Yeah.
the problem is when the server shows up with a sandwich rather than the beer.
And yet that could happen.
I would
Yeah.
still eat the sandwich, though. At that point, it's just a bonus.
Fair enough.
bonus sandwich.
Well, hold on. Not many people will order a second chicken sandwich when they are out.
I was drunk, hungry, and that's my second favorite hot chicken sandwich. And we know how much I love hot chicken sandwiches.
So wait,
Dan will
you
eat
had
two
hot chicken sandwiches
Yep.
at the same place during the same meal.
Yeah.
So it's not like you had a hot chicken sandwich at Evergreen and then like you went and did
Nope.
something else and stopped somewhere else and also had a hot chicken
Nope.
sandwich.
Both
This
at
was
Evergreen.
so you legit went up and were like, I'll have another hot chicken sandwich.
Yes.
Yep.
They said, sir, we're afraid we can't give you another hot chicken sandwich.
You are visibly
One hot chicken
enchickenated.
sandwich per person limit.
I got to say, I forget the guy's name, but the past couple of times I've been to Evergreen, the same guy has been my server, and he has been hilarious, personable. And when I asked about ordering another sandwich, he looks at me and goes, I mean, he can, but are you sure? And I was like, yeah, of course. He goes, I feel bad for your toilet, man. I'm like, so do I.
Oh boy.
I wish I could remember this guy's name. He's great. Every time that I'm there and I see him and he's my server, I'm so happy. And I don't get out there very often because it's like 2 hours away from us. But it says a lot when this one guy makes that much of an impression of being your server in a brewery that's far away from your house.
Yeah. Shout out that guy.
Yeah. Fuck. I wish I could remember his name. I'll go back there again. It's fine. But anyway, on to the topic at hand of Devil's Eye Brewing. We cracked open the red ale before starting. We figured that could be the intro beer, if you will, the sipping beer, even though we don't really do much of that part anymore. But I love this. This is delicious, man. What's the story behind this one?
Well, I mean, I just I'm really good, or I consider myself to be much better at making maltier beers. I struggle with anything that, well, I used to struggle with it, like IPAs. So I could make something that you could tell it was supposed to be an IPA, but when it came to maltier beers like porters and stouts, which I was much more of a fan of when I started drinking craft beer, I feel like it's easier to put them together, and they hide imperfections a little better than IPAs, just because you can load it down with a couple of different type of malts, and you'll you'll get something that's got chocolate and toffee, and but the Irish Red Ale is literally just like I wanted when I started at the brewery. I was like, I want to hit those milestones that like St. Patrick's Day or the pumpkin ale season. Like, I want to have those seasonal beers on. And so I put together this Irish Red, and I was like, you know what, let's try to make the best beer I can. And my first batch of it turned out, it was like exactly what I wanted. I wish I could tell you exactly what's in it without looking over here at my software. Because I think, well, actually, so this isn't, for the most part, a visual medium, so I could do that without letting.
Yeah, you really didn't have to give yourself away there.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what else to tell you about it, other than it turned out the way I wanted it to be. It gets a lot of requests at the brewery. So when St. Patrick's Day passes, and we run out of that one barrel that I usually produce, or 2 barrels at that point, and then it goes off of the tap list, people are like, well, when's that coming back on? And I'm like, well, I have 12 taps. I'm trying to keep, interesting stuff rotating in and out. But it became so popular that we have one of the owners' dads makes these wooden signs for the beers that are supposed to be like our flagships, and he made one without, I didn't know it was going up there, and so they have Devil's Dance Floor, which is the name of this beer, my Irish Red Ale, and it's up on the wall now, and so people are like, oh, well, I'll have that. I'm like, well, we don't have it all the time. But I'm glad you like it. This is one of my favorites. When it's out, I'll go into the bar and sit and have like 1 or 2 of these, and it's a lower ABV, so you can sit and you can just drink them over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's what, 5.5%, and yeah, it's very flavorful. It's exactly what I would want out of a red ale. It's perfect, and especially on kind of hot day, even though I didn't leave the house, the heat still gets inside a little bit, but like this is nice and refreshing and exactly what I needed.
This would be a good year-round beer. I mean, you have the sign on the wall already.
Yeah.
No one is making them anymore. But we were up in Allentown at McCall's the other weekend, and I wanted to get the rainbow flight of the Berliner Weisses because I needed the picture of a rainbow of beers. That's for another day. But we needed to fill the second flight. So I got the Pilsner, which I love. And I just assumed I'm going to order a pint of the Pilsner. But we also got their red ale. And I was like, holy crap, I forgot how much I love red ales. And that's what I got. And it was my favorite beer of our visit, which is very unlike me because usually I'm the lager girl. But this beer, like, if I would definitely go to Devil's Eye. I always have to look at the can. There's so many Devil's breweries. I would go to Devil's Eye, and this would be my go-to beer. And like, this is a beer that you can sit there and just drink pint after pint after pint. It's really delicious. I'm glad that we started with this beer because I'm like, okay, Dan gave his business card to a good guy.
I really hope as soon as we get to the pitchfork, I can change your mind on the red ale. But I mean, it's still, I'm very happy to hear that because, even though people drink the beer, I can sit in the brewery and watch people drinking the beer, and I'm still like, I don't know what I'm doing. I make beer, but I have no idea, like if anybody likes it. Of course, everybody's drinking it. We're running out of stuff. And I'm just like, I don't think people like my beer because nobody comes out and tells me like directly to my face because they don't know, like when you're sitting at the bar, unless you're wearing the shirt and telling people directly like, hey, I'm the brewer. Nobody's like, that guy looks like the brewer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Actually, that makes me think of, back when we used to do the podcast in person all the time, a lot of times afterwards, like we would hang out at the bar or the brewery for a little while, and we'd be sitting with the brewer or the owner at just a table somewhere. And I'm just always thinking, none of these people know that this guy made all the beer they're drinking. Like nobody knows who the brewer is. It's just this guy sitting in the corner. It's really interesting.
There was one night we had music in, and I happened to be in there with my wife and my daughter, and the guy who was doing the main portion of like the singing and guitar and everything, he comes over and he was talking to somebody at the bar, and they're like, oh, well, that's the brewer if you want to talk about the beer. And so he came over, and for the rest of the night, before every song, he would announce what beer he was making and point me out in the dining room and be like, that's the brewer. So if you like the beer or you don't like the beer, that's the guy to talk to right there. It was actually a very uplifting evening, just because a lot of people would cheer then when he pointed me out. And, you know, it's like, never really expected a brewer to be a celebrity, but that night it was like, yeah, I make the beer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. That's cool.
No, that's funny that you say that, though. There has become this thing where brewers are a bit of celebrity, and I think you brewers, including yourself, should embrace that and enjoy those feelings, because it is a pretty shitty job when it comes down to it. Brewing is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. You are wet and dirty and sweaty and
you
full
smell
of
like
cleaners. that we'll get to that story.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I think especially if you're brewing good beers and you seem like a really nice, humble guy, like if you make good beer and you're a nice person, then you should enjoy having that feeling of celebrityism, as it were, for a little bit, especially right now. You know, there are some people, unfortunately, in our industry that are letting that attention sort of get to their head and may have made some bad decisions. So I think we need to lift up the good people in the industry that are nice and make good beer. I completely agree with you. I still will sometimes meet people who brew professionally in this area.
And when I get a chance to meet them, I'm still starstruck when I meet, like when I get a chance to talk to the brewer for one of these places, like these big name places. And I'm just like, wow, you know, you do this, like you're a professional. I'm just like baby brewer over here.
And don't ever lose that, because that's part of the reason why you are doing this job. And, you know, on the worst days when the mash is stuck or the yeast isn't doing what you need it to do, or, you know, a fermenter explodes on you, like you have to remember, like, this is why I do this, you know, and I think it's okay to nerd out and be like that. And, you know, and you'll be collaborating with those people and working with those people soon enough.
So I was going to say, why don't we rewind a little bit and talk about the founding of Devil's Eye, how you ended up there and how you ended up being the brewer there. So I know the brewery was founded in July of 2019. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. Founded by...
I think because I started in August. I started regularly in August, but please go ahead.
Founded by Holly Amig and Tracy Wilson.
Yes.
The two founders. So I saw in the notes, this is what I really wanted to get to. I wanted to cover the basics of who actually owns the brewery, when it was founded, when it was opened, all of that just to get to. In the notes, it said the brewer vanished and you became the brewer. So I feel like there's a story there.
There is a story. So my wife and I moved into Dillsburg here about a little over 3 years ago. And so I had been homebrewing for about 10 years, and I had a hiatus after my daughter was born because, you know, it's a busy time.
Right.
So I stopped brewing for about a year or so, and then I started getting back into it as soon as we bought the house here. And I was on Google Maps one day looking for a new brewery to go to because we moved into the area. I was like, I got to find what's in the area. I need to try these different beers. And I saw there was a place on 15 that used to be called Flapjacks. And then all of a sudden it said Devil's Eye Brewing. And I was like, wait a second. I see this road every day. I drive on this road every day and I've not seen a brewery. So when I looked it up, I found out that they were getting ready. They're doing all the renovations, getting ready to open. So of course, geeked out. I'm like, oh my God, there's going to be a brewery 2 minutes from my house. Turns out it's more like 8 minutes because of the way 15 works. You have to go all the way around and come back down 15 to get there. So I sent a Facebook message to their Facebook page, and I said, "Hey, my name is Rob. I live in the area, and I've been homebrewing for 10 years. And I would love, once you open, to come in and take a look at your system and just see how professional brewing works and everything." And the owner, Holly, contacted me. She's like, "Oh, we'd love to have you come in, and we're actually renovating. We'd love you to come in and like talk to us, talk to our brewer, and all this." Now, there were a series of events where she tried to contact me, and then her schedule didn't work out at all. Either they had something come up, like I think their pizza ovens were misdelivered or something like that. The one time, like we can't make the meeting we had scheduled because there was a problem with the pizza oven. So I'm like, all right, that's fine. I didn't think I'd get there before they opened. And so when they finally opened, my wife and I went the day that they opened. And we sat down and we ordered beer and food. And Holly actually comes over. We'd never seen each other before, but apparently, as she said, has said to me, she Facebook stalks everybody she talks to. And so she came over. She's like, "You're the guy I've been talking to on Facebook." I'm like, "Yeah, are you Holly?" She's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Yes, I am the person you've been talking to." She's like, "I'm so sorry. We've been trying to get together with you, but it's just been a series of unfortunate events." And so you fast forward like a week later, 2 weeks later, I'm driving back from Maryland because I have a second job in Maryland, and I get a text message on Facebook from Holly that says, "Do you know how to keg beer?" And I had just started kegging my beer about 3 months before that. And I was like, "Well, yes, I know how to keg beer." She's like, "Well," she asked me a series of questions, which I had to pull off the side of the road to answer. And then finally I get home. I tell my wife about this strange interaction I had with the brewery owner down the road. And she's like, "What are you doing here? Go down there and help them with what they were doing. Make sure it gets." So I went down there, and they were so happy to have me come in because their brewer had literally left them with 3 one-barrel fermenters full of beer and just vanished off the face of the planet.
Wow.
He didn't let them know he was leaving. He didn't leave a forwarding address or anything like that. He just never came back.
Wow.
And when I talked to them, they kind of had a feeling at some point that, he wanted to learn how to do the brewing on this level. And then he learned a new skill. So then he was just going to move on to learning the next skill is, I think, what they told me at one point. But I helped them keg the beer that they had, and I told them how they could work on getting it carbonated. And then the next day, my wife was like, "Well, you should take some beer that you just kegged in for them and, just show it to them. Like, what are you doing in the house? Go back down to the brewery." I went back down to the brewery with my beer, and I met up with them again. I let them try the stuff that I was getting ready to send to a PA beer competition, and none of it was scored very well. So I was, so then I guess a day later, I got a text message from them. They're like, "Hey, we want you to come in and make beer for us. We're going to do some of it, but we want you to come in and make beer for us." And so I was like, "Well, yeah, of course." And that's kind of the history of the whole thing. I know it's long-winded, but that was their brewer. They started with one brewer. That brewer decided not to continue on with them. And then they had this new brewer come in, and they wanted to have 2 brewers. But then the brewer that they had he just up and left. So the story of the Vanishing Brewer is how I went from brewing for 10 years as a home brewer to a mad dash to learn how to brew a little more professionally.
Wow.
So if the brewer vanished, like, do we know he's okay, or like was it a missing person's case?
I think they finally did find out that he was okay.
Okay.
But yes, yeah, he didn't end up in the beer. As part of the beer or something. He was okay. He just decided to move on.
And just not tell anyone and to do it immediately.
And to leave beer in the fermenters.
Just leave the beer.
Yes.
Yeah, I did half the work for you. Have fun.
Well, that's like super serendipitous for everyone involved. I mean, they were super lucky that you were nearby and were super interested in helping because they really were in a spot. And it's great that you just happened to be able to help out and then end up being part of the team. I think this is the most interesting origin story for
Yeah.
a brewer we've ever
Yeah, I
heard.
think so.
That's pretty cool.
Well, and I feel like your most important quality was your reliability. Like, this guy knows how to keg beer. He knows how to make beer. The beer is pretty good, but he's also reliable. That's important.
He's also 2 minutes up the
I was
road.
gonna say, he's right down the street.
So I got a key pretty fast just to let deliveries in and such too.
Right. Cool.
Now, this is really interesting, though. You said did the brewery open in July of 2019, or when did the actual brewery open to the public?
I believe it was 2019, July of 2019.
So this was in the midst of this pandemic, which is sort of the point I'm getting
No.
to. I mean,
No.
it was just before 2020.
Yeah,
was the start of
it
the
feels
pandemic.
like this has been going on for like a decade.
Well,
but
yeah,
what is
it
time?
Does
What
feel
does it
like
mean?
it's been like 20 years. So it was just before the pandemic, I guess.
Yes.
8 months before.
Yeah.
So that had to have put an interesting wrench in things, being a pretty young business. Did Devil's Eye stay open throughout the whole thing? Did you guys change business models so that you could make money?
So they did close down for a number of, I don't remember how long it was, but they did close down when the big sweep of everybody like shutting their doors, as the pandemic ramped up and everybody was really panicked because they didn't, at the time, they didn't do takeout at all. And we didn't have our pizza, we still hadn't had our pizza ovens in. And so they did close their doors down for a good bit. And then they started to, once things started to relax, they opened back up. But we were at one point, we got the pizza ovens in, and then they started doing takeout, and we would do they bought a canner, and they would do cans and growlers for people to take out. So I was still and this actually, I mean, the pandemic gave me time to back up a lot of beer because we have a 1-barrel system, and so I always feel like I'm serving greener beer than I want to. At that time, I was able to like make a beer and let it sit for the appropriate amount of time, and then we would just get through it before I would think I'd need to, replace it. But they did. So they started opening with everybody else once the restaurants were allowed to start serving, inside again. So they didn't change much of the business model other than to just kind of start doing takeout more often at the very beginning, and then started taking people in. I'm not really sure what. Really sure there's anything else to it than that. Yeah. They just kind of weathered the storm. They have a great group of investors, and so they managed to keep everything afloat. They kept everybody on. I believe they kept everybody on staff, and I don't think we lost anybody over the course of the pandemic before we started serving again.
Oh, wow.
You guys have a lot of core locals that come into the brewery regularly?
Yes. There is one guy whose name is a day of the week. I think it's Sunday. I think his name's Sunday. He comes in and he gets very irate if we don't have my my porter on. The vestibule porter. It's the only thing he drinks. He comes in, he sits in the same chair every time. He drinks the porter until he can't drink any more of it, and then he goes home. But he's I've talked to him. He's a nice enough guy when I talk to him. But there's a number of people who I like when I walk in. I'm not surprised to see them there. There are definitely people who are like, they're so happy to have this local scene to go to. Aside from we have Al's up the road. Big Bottom Brewery up the road from us, and then I can't think of anybody else that's on 15 right there. But for sitting down and eating and getting drinks as well. But yeah, we do have there are a number of people I see on a very regular basis.
I feel like every brewery we've heard a story about, that one regular that sits in the same chair, drinks the same beer, lots of it, and then leaves.
Yeah.
We recently talked. It was a triple. There was a guy who always got the triple.
Oh, wasn't that Poor Man's?
I think it was Poor Man's. Yeah. I forget the guy's name, but it was a similar story. I think every brewery has that guy.
Yeah.
When I was at Iron Hill, we had a patron that all they wanted was the triple, and if they came in and it wasn't on tap, they left.
Like I get what you like, but if it's not on, try something else. You already made the effort to go in there.
we had this conversation with Brooks also.
Mm-hmm.
What was the IPA that Bart designed, the can art? Lobster, the lobster one. Why can't I
Oh,
think of it?
yeah.
Oh, is it? Wait, I know a lobster one. That's I'm going to butcher the name. Is that Haymauer?
Haymauer, yeah.
Yeah, Haymauer, yeah.
He's I have a story. A quick. He's the one I bother most often for because he
Well, he's
serves.
another really nice and
Yeah, I was gonna
reliable
say,
guy.
oh my God,
So I'm
yeah.
glad to hear that.
He's the one to bother. He's a real nice guy, yeah.
He usually serves at the Dillsburg Farmers Market on Saturdays, and so I'll walk over there. My wife would be like, "Why don't you go over and see if they have any new beer?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I bother him all the time." So I walk over, and I'm just like, "Hey, here to talk about beer again."
I'm sure he loves it though.
Yeah, I'm
Probably.
sure he absolutely does. I'm sure.
Steph, I see you pouring another beer. Did you advance to the next one?
I went to the amber because that was the next
That
can
was
in front of me.
Well, I guess we
Well,
should
let's do that.
join you.
I'll dig out the amber.
Awesome. Yeah, so you were saying, Rob, that you wanted the amber to change our opinions of the red ale?
Yes, because the amber is one of my. It used to, when I was homebrewing, this was called my bread and butter amber ale, and because it was the bread and butter of the beers that I made. And so this is the beer I have worked on the longest, and as long as I didn't mess anything up with this batch, I do hope that comes through. It's my wife's favorite beer at the brewery, and that's saying something because she will be almost viciously honest about some of my beers.
Well, you need that. Yeah.
So every time she's like, "Oh, it's just so good." And this is also one that I had with me at the Brewfest that we met at briefly.
I probably had it, but I apologize if I can't remember because clearly the day is spotty for me.
Yes. So this has less of the. Well, I can tell you what I think it should taste like. It has less of the bitter bite at the end, as the Irish Red, and it's got that much more powerful upfront, like malty character.
It does. It
to
does. It has a
Dan definitely does not like it. He is having a hard time getting it down over
yeah,
there.
Oh,
he's
you know,
choking it down.
Oh,
It's got a nice
it's the worst thing I've
caramely-
ever. No, it's amazing. I fucking love this.
almost like butterscotch thing going
yeah,
on.
it's
That's
the
really nice.
the malt adds it's such a nice
Yeah.
sweetness from it, and butterscotch is the perfect way to sum it up. It's this is great. And I realized when I was writing down in my notebook earlier, I had said that the red ale was the one that was 5.5%. This is the one that's 5.5%. The red
Right.
ale was 4.2.
4.2, yeah.
But this is just my god, this is incredible.
Nice, yeah.
Jeez.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to stop smiling for the rest of the night. So I was going to be like, "Would you stop smiling?" I'm like, "No, I can't. It's stuck."
I mean, I can lie and tell you that it's shit if you want.
Oh no, please. Well, I would expect it, but then the rest of the night I'm just going to be like, "Well, nobody likes my beer."
Oh, sorry guys, bad internet connection. And
yeah. That's the thing about the Zoom is people could rage quit and we wouldn't even know. We
Yeah.
just think that their internet went out.
yeah. Oh, sorry guys. Oh, a car plowed into a phone pole
That
and
did
knocked out the
happen.
power.
That did happen once.
I would have been surprised if you've been doing the online interviews and haven't had that happen at all, where your internet went out and lost somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Poor Man's Sam, I
Yeah.
believe it was from Poor Man's, cut out. We had other people on too, but he cut out and came back later and said like there was an accident down the road and a pole got hit, or he texted the other guys or
Yeah.
something. But that
You
was the
might have-
biggest one.
You might have somebody come on who thinks that their interview was supposed to be between 7 and 9 and not 5 and 7.
Well, to be
and be
fair,
stuck at Boscov's or Bosco's.
Bosco. To be fair, the vast majority of our recordings do occur at 7 p.m. So
yeah. it was partially my fault that we couldn't record 7 to
Partially.
9 on Friday.
No, it was 100% your
It was
fault.
well known way before that I was going to that damn show.
Not in the. I knew you were going, but it wasn't in the calendar.
Yeah,
so how
I
was
didn't put it on the
supposed to
calendar
remember?
because I thought you were going.
Yeah, we got a refund for that show. We went to Hershey
Hershey.
and paid way less for better seats,
Yeah.
Oh,
not,
that's
not
cool.
surprised.
and
Anyway.
we got free parking.
Oh, I took the subway.
yeah.
That's the benefit.
Well, you live in the city, so
yeah, that's a benefit of living
Parking
here.
at Hershey.
Yeah, that is pretty nice though. But anyway, yes. I won't tell people this beer is shit because it's not. It's quite the opposite. This is delicious.
Yeah.
I really love that sweetness.
Yeah, it is really nice. And I know you said that like the maltier style. I think I've only tasted these two beers from you, so it's my only example to go by. But I mean, I can tell that these beers are made, with care and with someone who appreciates these styles, these aren't the kind of styles that are super sexy or popular, but I really love them.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I do them too, is because when you go to a brewery, you see 18 different types of IPA, whether it's hazy or West Coast, double IPAs or whatnot, and then so I do make IPAs. I can do that competently, but you never see an amber ale. You barely ever see an Irish red on. Everybody's got a stout, but I it's like I want to have something for everybody, and so we have 12 taps that run the range from Kolsch all the way up to I had an English barley wine for Christmas season, but that was. I mean, if you're ever going to come to Devil's Eye, you should come every week, but you should try to make it for around Christmas time when I put out the the name is escaping me at the moment, but it's a English barley wine that again is it's based off of a recipe that I had made a long time ago. I entered it into Maryland homebrew competition. I got second place in the big beers category. And so I went and turned it from a extract brew into an all grain brew to make it here at Devil's Eye. And it went over fantastic. So, but I just try to put something out for everybody, because I feel like beer is one of those things where people are like, oh, I don't like the way that the hops taste. And I'm like, well, I am right now putting together a recipe to make a group that is bittered with juniper berry. So there won't be any hop flavor to it at all. But also, if you're going to drink Icy Light or something, you can put that can down and drink my Kolsch, because it'll have a better flavor to it, but you also will be able to drink it for the entire night. And that way, I also drain the kegs down, and that way I get to make more beer.
Have you ever tried to make a goza?
Okay, so yes. I have two. Right. So when I first started working there, sours were real big. Gozas were real big. They're still sours are real big still. But so I tried to make it with lactic acid, and I'm like, I don't really like how it turned out. So then the next year I kettle soured the Gozas, and I did one that was the owners had tried. I can't remember what the name of the beer is, but Founders makes one that's got a zebra on the front. It's a watermelon goza, and one of the owners was like, you need to try making this beer. So I made this goza watermelon, and then I made the same basic recipe just with sour cherry, and it went over. People were, because it was hot, so you want that salty, fruity, sour ale. And so I made them again this year, and they went super quick. So I decided to make a second batch of it based on asking the owners, do you want me to make more? And they're like, well, yes, it sells, so please make more. And then, so in the process of kettle souring my gozas this time, I decided to double batch. So I used my HLT, my hot liquor tank, and my boil kettle. And then I also decided to make a jalapeno strawberry goza. And so I had all of three of these boiling at the same time in a very small brew room with questionable ventilation. So myself and everything in the brewery smelled like vomit. Which is the smell that you want for when you're doing the kettle souring. It was a good smell to tell me that it was doing what it was supposed to do. But still, if I am at home working out, if I start sweating, all I smell is vomit still. And it's weeks later. So I'm like, I have showered in vinegar and just anything I can think of to get the smell. It's still,
oh my goodness.
The owners told me, listen, try not to do this again when we're going to be open, because we had people leave because the place. And especially bad is the fact that the ventilation for the brew room and the AC in the brew room is also hooked into the bathrooms. And so any of the air that passes through the brew rooms gathers the smell from what I'm brewing and takes it straight into the bathroom, which is fine if you're making, say, a stout or a porter, something that smells a bit chocolatey. everybody smells something different when you're boiling the beer. Some people get corn. It really depends on what you're making. But when you're making goza and all you're getting is vomit smell, it goes right into the bathroom. It really turns people off to the whole brewery experience. So that would be the whole story of my recent experiment with these. Well, it's not really an experiment because the watermelon. So Angry Melons is the watermelon sour, and then we have Sour Cherry Supernova, which is the sour cherry one, and then people really like them. And then I had what was it? I can't remember the name of the brewery. It's a Maryland brewery. They made a small run of a jalapeno strawberry goza, and it was the first time I've had spiciness in a beer where I could actually sit and drink more than one of them. And so I was like, I want to try that. And I was growing jalapenos in my garden, so I was like, I'm gonna do it. So I made a 5-gallon batch of it that we'll put on once it's done doing what it's supposed to do. But that was a whole story. Was that too long?
No, that was good. That was good. I'm just curious how much longer it's going to be before you stop oozing vomit smell every time you
it's getting less and less every time. I think I need to work out more often.
Yeah.
Just to get it, just to really.
I was going to say, like,
come out.
I think you got a water cycle, like down a bunch of water, sweat a lot, down a bunch, just to kind of cycle it out.
Well, my problem is I just keep downing beer, and it's not helping at all.
I mean, it might take a little longer, but it would probably still work.
Wayne, wasn't the beer that you brewed with me, wasn't that a raspberry jalapeno saison?
Yes, the one that that you homebrewed and I helped.
Yeah,
yes.
Well, I made you do all the shitty work.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what assisting brewing is. It was because I think we named it Brut de Derision, which is French for like blowing a raspberry. Like that's what they call that. It means like sound of derisive sound. But yeah, that was a raspberry jalapeno. Yeah, I remember that. That was a long time ago.
I just remember I had one by Rogue a long time ago. Came in a pink bottle, and I was like, you can drink a 4-ounce taster of this, but then you don't want to go on with the rest of the bottle. Mm-hmm. I mean, the flavor was great, but it was way too spicy, and I wanted to do something that had more of the vegetal flavor of the jalapeno to it, and that's exactly what the one beer I had was. And I can't. They make Raging. I'm very bad with names.
Flying Dog.
Oh, Flying
Thank
Dog.
you, Flying Dog. Oh my gosh. They also were my first experience with an Old Bay flavored beer.
Oh, the Old Bay beer was amazing.
Yeah, and I was at that time. I had discovered Old Bay. My wife had introduced me to Old Bay, and I never looked back. So everything needs to be covered in Old Bay for me.
Wait, are you not from around here?
No, well, I grew up in the Pocono Mountains, but I moved down to Maryland for about 10 years after college. And then I came back up into Pennsylvania about 5 years ago.
Oh, so not that long. Oh.
If you had that one that was from Rogue with the pink bottle, was that part of the Voodoo Donut series?
I don't know. It was years and years and years ago when I was still living in
Or
Maryland.
was it the red bottle and it was the sriracha?
Yeah,
beer?
the red was the sriracha. I have a couple pink bottles from Rogue that are Voodoo Donut upstairs on a shelf because I liked the artwork so much. And this is also like 8 years ago I got them.
Grape Ape.
No, fuck that one.
Grape Ape. Let's not open that debate again. Grape Ape.
It's our longest running debate.
I could drink that entire bomber bottle myself.
Yeah, but if it is, it kind of makes me curious if they have like a strawberry jalapeno donut at Voodoo because that would be really cool.
They do have a spicy donut.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
We did have their spicy donut. I don't remember what it was, though, at Voodoo. I don't understand the beers being too spicy, though. That I don't comprehend that phrase, Rob. I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, for me alone, it was just too. It didn't allow me to enjoy anything after it.
Yeah.
I think it like if you have something that's way too hoppy, then afterwards you're like your taste buds are just destroyed.
Yeah.
And it opened up everything. So at one point I had eaten a habanero, and I was having very very hoppy beers that were pretty bitter. And my first experience eating an entire pepper was on a dare. I ate the pepper, and then I went back to my beer after I had been resuscitated. And the beer tastes like syrup. to me. And that's kind of what this one beer did to me at that time. Is like, I enjoyed the flavor, but then you can't enjoy anything else after that for a certain period of time. So I like spicy things. I love all kinds of spicy food and hot sauces and stuff. But for the beer, I want to be able to sit and enjoy more than one. If I really like it, I want to have a whole bottle, and then maybe another whole bottle, and then another chicken sandwich.
Another hot chicken sandwich.
Well, you're talking to the girl that went to Twisted Pine Brewing and just had pint after pint of Ghostface Killer. So I don't.
Right? There's only certain people can do it.
Yeah, Steph has some weird gene that allows her to tolerate all that spice.
Yeah, I like spicy food, but spicy beer, like I can tolerate most of them. But we had Ghostface Killer at one point, and I had to tap out. I couldn't do it.
I'll never forget having either Crime or Punishment. I don't remember which one.
No.
At Steph's house.
Punishment is spicier.
So it's probably Punishment, and that was, I think, the spiciest beer I ever remember drinking.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that is one of the spiciest commercial made beers.
Yeah.
I have made spicier beers than
yeah.
that, but that's probably the spiciest commercial beer I've ever had.
Wow.
I don't come across them very often.
Yeah.
That's because there's a very small demographic of us that truly appreciate them.
Yeah, especially with such an oversaturated market of breweries in general. Like, people, when they decide they're going to go to a brewery, they need to know they're going to have something that they like. And if you have that on, it's not going to sell as much, and word's going to get around that you have this beer that people can't like taste other beers afterwards. And it's not necessarily a viable decision. But like, as a special one-off, if you do like small batch or something, or if people still do Firkins, like that would be a cool way to experiment with it.
That?
What the fuck?
What are we looking at?
Oh, that's a spicy donut.
Spicy donut
the
from
donut.
Voodoo. It's called Ring of Fire. It's a devil's food cake donut with cinnamon sugar, cayenne pepper, and a dried red chili pepper.
Interesting.
I would try that.
Didn't they?
I don't know that they made a beer of that, but that is their spicy donut.
Did they do the Flamin' Hot Cheetos donut? Was that them?
No, well, no. There's the Bagel Nook does the Flamin' Hot Cheeto bagel.
Not a donut.
That's in Jersey.
Yeah, those were real popular for a minute. Flaming hot Cheeto everything.
Yeah,
was really big.
I feel like the spicy in a if you add something spicy to a donut, the spicy and the sweet is going to go together really well, and so that works out. I feel like I know that there was a while back for right before I got married, the big thing was to put bacon in beers, like as an actual garnish.
Yep.
And somebody had made a bacon beer.
Well, also that would kill the carbonation. Putting actual bacon in the beer,
the oil just destroys it. And so for my bachelor party, my friends took me out to this place that made all these beers. They're like, oh yeah, Rob loves making beer. We're going to take him to this brewery. But first we went to have dinner, and they kept buying me scotch for a while. So by the time we got to this brewery, I was already a little done. And so they buy me this bacon beer. And I took one sip of it. I was like, this is not good. And then, completely out of character for me, everybody had to go to the bathroom at one point. I went to the bathroom, and I took the beer and I just chucked it in the urinal. I was like, this is not good. And I had to be told that I did that because I do not remember it. But apparently I was very upset about the flavor of the bacon in the beer.
Well, I mean, if they're throwing scotch down your throat earlier before that, yeah, you're allowed to not remember things later on that night.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I remember that period. Bacon was in everything. You couldn't turn a corner without seeing bacon in this and that. And like, traditionally, I'm the guy that always put bacon on everything, and then bacon got super popular, and everybody always got me something bacon themed for a gift, and it got old real quick, and so did the bad bacon flavor and things, because a lot of people would use smokiness in place of like a bacon flavor because it's easier to do artificial smoke than it is to do artificial bacon flavor, and it just never felt right. It never tasted right. So I don't blame you for dumping it in the urinal.
Yeah. Well, Dan liked bacon before it was cool.
I am a bacon hipster.
I can vouch for that, yeah. But now it's just hazy IPAs and milkshakes everywhere, so.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, people are going to drink what they're going to drink. Life's too short. Drink whatever you want.
I'm sorry I didn't send our Seventh Circle New England /hazy. What is the difference? Called a New England IPA.
I don't know.
The funny thing is that before, I was doing New Englands before they were popular, because when I started making IPAs as a new homebrewer, I was like, oats. I like oats, and I like oatmeal. I'm going to throw oats into my IPA, and I would do that. And I'd be like, oh, this is it's not coming as clear as it should. Like, it still tastes good. All right. And then come to find out, I was ahead of the trend, apparently.
Yeah.
But then when it mattered, I couldn't make it taste good for the brewery for the first couple of batches. So
That's it. Actually,
finally dialed that in, and now we have a hazy IPA that's on all the time. It's very like tropical fruit and citrus forward for the people that like that kind of thing.
which is a lot of people.
Yeah.
It is a lot of people. But I also, I really like the traditional West Coast IPA as well. So I made Old Scratch to scratch that itch. Oh, man, I didn't mean to make that pun, but I did.
I thought that was on purpose.
So at first, when I started working for Devil's Eye, I was like, well, I have to name everything that has to do with hell or demons or devils. And so, like, every name I came up with, the owners was like, well, are you sure? I'm like, well, yeah, it goes with the theme. And so Old Scratch being a name for the devil, that's how that came about. But yeah, to scratch that itch for people who wanted just a West Coast IPA, that more piney, resiny hop characteristic, we have that too. And that's what my double IPA is built off of. It's basically just the Old Scratch, and everything is literally doubled. All the ingredients.
It's literally a double IPA.
It is literally a double IPA.
That's what you should have called it.
Yeah.
Literally a double IPA. See, I missed out on it. Yeah. See, I wanted to call it Elder Scratch. And the owners were like, we're not letting you name beers anymore. And then I decided, I was like, I'm okay. Here's a list of names. Here's the one I really like. I wanted to call it Constant Vigilance because this one beer, because of how much hops are in it and the size of my boil kettle, I have to stand there and mist it every 5 seconds to keep it from boiling over. So I have to constantly watch it. I'm like, well, what if we just shorten that down to Vigilante? I'm like, that's fine. We'll just call it Vigilante. All right, just ruin the whole creative process. It's fine.
Well, and that also fits your persistence to really master the style. Well, I don't know if you feel like you've mastered it. I'm sure you're still trying to improve it and make it better every time you brew it, like most brewers. But I think your persistence to know that this is a style that you really wanted to work on and make something that you were proud of, I think it fits in that vein too.
Yeah, I mean, actually, what I'm trying to do is make the beers worse with every batch.
Perfect.
No, you're absolutely right. Is that I am trying to, especially for styles that I'd never felt like I was really strong with, like IPAs. Keep making it, tweaking it, and especially with the size of our system, it allows me to do this very quickly. So if I was working on like a 7-barrel system or something, 5-barrel system even, it would be longer between batches, so that if something was wrong or I perceived something that I wanted to change, it'd be a longer time between those batches where I'd be able to make those changes and get it back out to the people who come in to drink it. And so I wouldn't be able to make these small tweaks and changes to it, over the course of what has it been 2 years to get something where I now feel comfortable saying this is our New England, this is our West Coast, and this is probably what they're going to taste like for the rest of the time the brewery is open.
Yeah. Very cool. I did want to.
I'm really glad that we're getting to try your beers because, as Dan mentioned, we are still recording virtually, and sometimes it can be a challenge to get beers in our hands. And I did want to take the time to thank you because you did meet up with me so that I could get these beers in my hands and get them to Wayne and Dan. Although I will admit it was a little bit of a creepy encounter. I don't know if you'd like to tell the story.
Sure. So, I mean, you asked if we could meet halfway because we are about an hour and 40 minutes apart or so. And I was like, well, of course. I was all ready to drive them wherever they needed to go because I was just flattered to be invited to the podcast. But so I looked. I used, a website that told me where the halfway point was, and it was around the Renaissance Fairgrounds, which was appropriate. And so I knew that there was a hotel right across the street that would have a parking lot where we could, meet up at. And what I didn't know, and what I found out as I'm driving up.
Hold on. Before you get to the climax of the story, I do want to point out that I appreciate your precision in our meeting time also. you had a fatherly responsibility. And he said, I can meet between 4:10 and 4:20.
Wow.
Okay, I can make this work. And I think our ETA was like 4:12. So I texted Rob and I'm like,
Yes.
we'll be there at 4:12. And he's like, I will be there at 4:24.
Yes. At that point, I was in the car and I had Google Maps up, and it's like, you're going to be there at 4:24. I'm like, I said 4:20. So, yeah, my daughter had horseback riding lessons that night, and I needed to build in enough time for me to get back so that I could take her and that she wouldn't hate me for the rest of her life for missing that one session of horseback riding lessons. But then in showing up to our arranged meeting place, the parking area was roped off, and there was a big sign over top of the hotel sign that said that this facility was temporarily closed, and there no trespassing, violators would be prosecuted. I'm like, this looks really bad. We're meeting the Renaissance Fairground isn't in the middle of a big bustling city with lots of people. I was like, this is in the middle of nowhere. And then we're meeting at this. I got out of the car. The first thing I said was, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that this was closed before I set the meeting point. She's like, well, it does seem a little creepy.
I think I know what hotel you're talking about. I wasn't there when the beers got handed off, but is it the one that's like right off the turnpike? You turn right, and then the Renaissance Fair is going to be on your left, like a quarter mile up.
Literally right
so
across
it's right
the street
there.
from them.
Yeah, that's a seedy fucking hotel.
Well, and I was texting the two of them about, it was just a few days before Brews and Bands for Bart. So I was sharing with them some final information about the event. And I'm like, this guy had me meet him at an abandoned hotel. Of course, I was making it slightly more dramatic than it really was. But luckily, Rich and Dana were with me, so I wasn't by myself. But yeah.
And then I got out of the car with my shopping bag full of beers, which I believe I had canned just that morning. I learned the day before how to use our canning machine. And the owner, Holly, she was like, okay, now you're going to ruin a bunch of cans when you're doing this, just because you have to practice it. I lost one can in doing all of the beer that I brought along, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then I showed up at an abandoned hotel, and I was like, "There's nothing that makes up for this." Other than
and you were worried. You were worried. You said you were going to have nothing to talk about, and I said, "Well, we have this story,
right?"
Exactly.
If nothing else.
Well, and that was one thing when you gave me the business card, and you're like, yeah, I do this podcast, contact me. We would love to have you on. And I'm like, what in the world do they want to talk to me about? And then I listened to an episode the other day where you were talking to these two women who run this brewery that gives away all the money they make to charity. And I was like, what am I going to talk about after this? Like, what is possibly interesting about the work that I do compared to that?
I like how you listened to the one episode that I wasn't on in the past year.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
No, I've listened to other episodes. It was just that one. As we came closer and closer to this date, where obviously I thought it was supposed to be 7:00. So I would have had 2 more hours of preparing myself, like pumping myself up.
Maybe it's better you didn't have.
Yeah,
those
I think
2
this
hours.
is working out in our favor.
We're on the way back here, and I told my wife, I'm like, I can do this.
I could do this.
Meet people that I've only met in a parking lot, of an abandoned hotel one time, and at a brew fest.
Yeah.
Over a very interesting beer.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a pretty long time, and we're usually pretty good at dragging conversation out of people. And we've always prided ourselves in featuring, like, I don't know, the underdog or the newbie into the industry. Like, obviously, we've had a lot of really established and celebrated breweries on the show, and we've been blessed to meet some rock stars in the industry. Those people that make us go, oh my God, geek out, like you were talking about before. But, I think that we are also, we remember the people that gave us a shot when we were just starting doing this podcast. And, if it wasn't for the people that took a chance on us and agreed to talk to us, on our show, we wouldn't be doing this 8.5 years later. So there is still part of us that, we really like to connect with the newer people in the industry and the breweries that people may not have heard of, because this could be a platform for people who may not even know where Dillsburg, Pennsylvania is, but may pull up Google Maps and be like, hey, am I ever going through that way? I'm going to stop at this brewery. And that's an important part of what we do.
As long as you're going south on 15. If you're going north,
you're kind of out of
turn
luck.
left and turn around.
15 is annoying, I will say.
There might also be a surge of people showing up at that abandoned hotel after this episode. Check it out.
Yeah,
we can hand off beer here too.
And you know what the creepy thing was? And I must have missed them, but when we were leaving, we were at the light and then you were behind us. And then there was this random third car. And I'm like, where did they come from? Like, I didn't even see these people pull into the parking lot, and you couldn't come from anywhere else because they had the entire parking lot roped off. And I'm like, are we in trouble? Like, is somebody coming to prosecute us for being on the grounds? I was like, I think that was the creepiest part of it all. But
I felt a little apprehensive when they pulled in. I saw them pull into the parking lot, and I was like, well, maybe they just need to turn around. But then they kind of sat there for a little bit. I'm like, well, we're already in our cars and leaving, so I don't think there's anything they can do to us.
Well, Google
did
not inform us that the hotel was closed. So I'll just assume it was somebody looking for a hotel, and they were like, oh, crap, they're closed. So I blame Google for all of this.
It's all Google's
Damn
fault.
it, Google. How dare you?
Don't be Google.
Don't be Google. Don't be evil.
Should we open a stout?
Yeah, I was
Why
thinking
don't we
we
do
should
that?
do that
Stout
one,
it up.
and then after we talk about that, we can go into the game.
I think that's a fine idea.
I drank my stout already. It was in the house, and I was sans beer, and so I was like, I'll just get another can together, and then I never got a chance to get another can together. So,
well, if you need more beer, we have 2 mini fridges full of that. I'm happy to pack up a cooler and meet you in an abandoned hotel.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, thank you. I have to check to make sure that my daughter doesn't have any lessons coming up.
Oh, right, fair. There's some pretty creepy places we could find in Philly, I'm sure, to hand off beer.
I mean, the go-to would have been the Divine Lorraine, but now that's actually like upscale housing.
Oh, this smells nice.
It looks nice.
I follow that Untapped WTF account on Instagram. They basically make fun of people that like rate and review beers on Untapped in the stupidest possible ways.
Oh gosh.
And I don't even remember the actual comment that they were making fun of, but somebody had checked in a stout. And the comment sort of alluded to the fact that these people never realized that a stout, like an imperial stout, is not a stout. And like it made me think about how imperial stouts became so cool, and it's like the stout that every brewery has. Like if they have a stout, it's usually an imperial stout, and not all stouts are imperial. And it just made me giggle at the fact that there are people out there that probably have never had a legit stout and just assume all stouts are like 10% or higher. This isn't like 10%, is it? I didn't look at the ABV before I said that.
I was just going.
I think it's just under 6.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
Yeah. So I was going to say something. I was in the middle of getting ready to say it, and it just flew straight out of my head.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, so this is definitely not an imperial. Most people, I think, when they think stout, they're like, well, Guinness. But an American stout is not normally dry like a Guinness is. It should have some hoppy characteristics to it. And then I lean a little more into mine is a little bit more dry. I feel like I go for roasty and with a little bit of chocolate to it. I like it. That's why I keep it on. It does sell. But I really enjoy a stout. Like I feel like if I go to a brewery and they have a stout on that I'm like, yeah, I like that stout, I will go back. It's one of my favorite like go-to styles. And a lot of people think, oh, stout, you're only going to drink that in the winter. I'm like, no, hot day, I'll take a stout outside. It's fine.
Yeah, I've had to justify that to people plenty of times. I don't do it much anymore because I tend to be more of the lager guy. But I mean, something like this, even on as hot a day as it is now, and as the heat wave we've had, this is nice and refreshing. And yeah, it's it's malty and it's roasty and it's got the chocolate notes to it, but it still works very well, even though it's 105 degrees or whatever the fuck.
Well, this is, a stout can be a very drinkable, refreshing beer. They're not all super thick and cloying. But I love the aftertaste that you get with this stout. It's almost like you're gnawing on the dark chocolatey malts.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that sticks with you a little bit. And I like that it ends, dry and astringent and like it's not sweet. These are the kinds of stouts that I like to drink.
Great. I just have to add some pepper to it, and then it'll be straight up your alley.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie.
A few Serranos might be nice.
Yeah, that could actually really work.
You can do a cask. You can get a Randall. Like there are many ways that you can take just a little bit of beer and spice it up, and not have to commit to an entire barrel.
As the aforementioned Kevin Keller has shown me, you can do a French press.
Oh yeah.
Or you can take your own peppers, like I've done, and add them yourself, and some brewers will look at you like, what the fuck are you doing to my beer? Like a certain brewer at a certain brewery that I won't mention. Do you remember?
But you could
this
always
name?
just say, at least I didn't put bacon in it.
That's true.
It would have been worse. But I would describe this exactly as you did, which means it turned out exactly as you intended. A lot of roastiness, a little bit of chocolate. And I do really like that lingering roasty aftertaste that stays with you, and like it's not very sweet at all. It's really nice.
Yeah, it gets close to. I feel like sometimes my porter and my stout can be a little interchangeable at times, but the porter leans more into the sweeter malty characteristics. So it's a little bit more chocolate with like a light roasty finish to it. But the stout, I wanted it to be a bit drier up front than the porter. But you don't have the porter to try, so I could say whatever I want.
You could say it tastes like
how
crab
it tastes, and until you actually go to Devil's Eye, and that'll be the one time it's not on tap, even though it's one of the flagships. I'll make sure. I'll be like, no, they can't try it.
I'll walk in and walk right out.
But there will be probably 12 taps of beer you could try. Why would you turn around and leave?
I'll ask for the Devil's Dance Floor because it's a wooden sign. It should always be on.
Yeah.
Shall we play a game?
Yeah, I think it might be.
Is it game time? Is it time to play a game?
Would you like to play a game?
This is the part where I sit up so that people can see I actually did wear the branded cereal.
Nice.
But my camera doesn't come down far enough.
You just do the whole thing like that. Just your chest. We can't see your head.
And then they still won't know who I am.
We'll throw a voice modulator on it too.
Yeah. Where you're like in the shadows and there's like light behind you.
That's fabrication, guys.
Oh my goodness. Cheers, Internet. Welcome to Happy Fun Time Games, the podcast trivia segment that will always take another hot chicken sandwich. We are joined this episode by Rob Getz from Devil's Eye Brewing, which is in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. He will be competing against my co-hosts, Dan and Steph, for the not at all coveted, completely transient and meaningless title of Happy Fun Time winner. Today, we'll be playing a game all about the endless poetry found in the beer reviews on beeradvocate.com. Yes, I will be reading you excerpts from various beer reviews with phrases and words omitted, and you must guess between two options what are the true words of the author and what I just made up. And this time, we have a theme. All of these reviews are for the same beer. They are for the classic American adjunct lager from Minnesota known as Hamm's.
Oh.
Yes. This one is especially for our patrons and last call listeners. You know who you are. If you don't know the inside joke, patreon.com/beerbuster. But yeah, all these reviews are for the adjunct lager Hamm's. So we're going to begin to my left with Dan, our first review of Hamm's. The reviewer has this to say: there is nothing repeated in all caps in this world worse than Hamm's.
Oh.
Nothing. Not genocide, nothing. He goes on to say, it tastes like, is it the breath of a man who lives on the street and does nothing but drink natural ice, or the breath of a dog that lives in the sewer and does nothing but eat rats?
I thought you were going to say a dog that drinks nothing but natty ice. Let's go dog and rats.
All right, Dan is going with the dog and rats. Steph, what do you think?
No, I'm going with the first one because I don't think you would call it natural ice.
Okay, fair enough.
that's
Interesting logic. Finally, Rob.
I'm inclined to go with the second one only because the first one actually mentions a beer, but then I'm going to go with the first one, I think.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to go against what I think is the right choice.
That's
and
usually a
hopefully,
good strategy.
yeah.
It is, and it worked this time because it was the first one, the breath of a man who lives on the street and does nothing but drink natural ice, which has a nice lilting flow to it. It's very
He's
poetic.
like the Dr. Seuss of beer advocate.
Yeah. He also goes on to say it tastes like that man's pee. So I guess
and then that
filtered.
happens.
Yeah.
Iambic pentameter, and then tastes like
and then
his piss.
tastes like his pee. And I guess that means this hypothetical man's breath smells like his pee, or his pee smells like his breath. Either way, they both smell like hams, apparently.
breath, pee, breath.
That's right. Moving on to our second hams review of the game, and Steph is going to guess first on this one. This review begins with two simple words: really horrible. Thankfully, they elaborate on that sentiment and say, this shit tastes like, is it tortilla chips soaked in unflavored seltzer, or O'Doul's with a shot of Heinz white vinegar?
Oh, God.
I'm going to go with the tortilla chips.
Going with the tortilla chips. Rob, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the tortilla chips.
All right, we've got two tortilla chips. You going to keep the trend or disagree?
No, vinegar.
Dan is disagreeing, going with the vinegar, and Dan is correct.
Yes!
It was O'Doul's with a
Much
shot
more
of
visceral.
Heinz
That's just terrifying. I'm
vinegar.
so glad that didn't come out of your brain.
No, it did not. It came out of someone else's. Noting that they, quote, love cheap beer, the reviewer concludes, Hams is horrible, a morbid mockery of a brew. Do yourself a favor and buy a Schlitz or a PBR instead. Sage
So they're a
advice.
hipster.
Yeah,
Right,
pretty
yeah.
much, yeah.
I chose the first one because the second one I didn't want to hear it read again.
That's a good strategy, though.
Sorry I had to put you through that. I'm sorry I had to put you through that. We are moving on to review number 3, which is also our penultimate review of the game. And Rob, you're up to guess first on this one. Our next reviewer, after noting the pale straw color, saying it is even less vibrant than Budweiser, they describe the smell as, is it light apple juice and communion wafers, or buttered popcorn and pasta water?
I'm going to go with buttered popcorn and pasta water.
All right, popcorn, pasta water. Yeah.
Communion wafers.
All right. Dan disagreeing, going with the communion wafers and light apple juice.
I'm also going to say communion wafers.
All right, Dan and Steph agreeing. They are both correct.
Hey!
It was, in fact, light apple juice and communion wafers.
I don't drink enough ham, I guess.
Yeah, I guess not. I don't actually think I've ever had a Hams, to be
Well,
honest.
I mean, apparently, if you just take some light apple juice and throw some wafers in there, you might be about the
Yeah,
same. So
yeah.
just, go to the grocery store.
Or get an O'Doul's and throw a shot of white vinegar in it.
Well,
apparently.
you're also giving these reviewers credit that they can actually use words to properly describe these beers.
Well, I think anyone that's writing a serious review of Hams on Beer Advocate probably doesn't know what they're talking about. So this is the point in the game where we're going to add up all the scores so far, see where everyone stands, see who gets to guess first, second, and third on the last question. We have a two-way tie.
Oh.
With 2 points apiece, my fellow beer busters, Dan and Steph. Rob, unfortunately,
Such a
only-
disappointment.
well, you had one. You had one correct answer. You're not a complete goose egg, so you can still tie. We still have hope of a German sparkle party. It's true, ladies and gentlemen. But we'll find out if that comes true. So we're going to let Rob guess last since he is trailing, and that gives him an advantage knowing the other's answers. So we're going to start again with Dan for our final Hams review of the game. Our last review hints at an intriguing backstory, beginning with the tantalizing phrase, Hams has been my go-to beer since. Is it Heineken stole my girlfriend and my rent money, or Rolling Rock made me lose a tooth back in 2013?
I'm going to go Rolling Rock.
Dan is going to go with the Rolling Rock and the lost tooth. Steph, what do you think?
My strategy is whatever Dan said.
All right,
Well,
so
you know
agreed.
that means...
I know.
No, okay, all right.
A German sparkle party.
True,
is
that
more
is the
important to
best
me than a
outcome.
win.
That's the best outcome.
That is the best outcome. So, Rob, I feel like your only logical option is to go against what Dan and Steph said.
Honestly, I would have gone with them, but I will go against them because that is the obvious choice.
That is the best strategy at the moment, although winning and losing this game means absolutely nothing.
Right.
It was, in fact, the Rolling Rock. Dan and Steph were correct.
Yeah, because where does Heinz come into play? Like, are you saying that this is going to be This is my go-to beer since whatever. Like, it's replacing a beer.
I said Heineken.
I thought you said Heinz.
I said Heineken. I said Heinz for the white vinegar earlier.
I did hear
Heinz.
something about Heinz. I swear it was Heinz.
Okay.
Oh, maybe I said Heinz.
Okay.
I meant to say
All right.
Heineken. I'm
no,
sorry.
you said Heineken.
I don't
because
know.
I thought of our grandfather.
After the game, I'm going to pause and save, and I'm going to rewind the tape.
say,
We're going to see what it
Fortunately,
was.
this has all been recorded. Are we taking bets?
You
Oh, no,
said Heineken.
I'm fairly certain it was Heineken, but I think for some reason in my head while you were still talking, I was like, Heinz, what ketchup?
Right, yeah.
Why was he drinking ketchup?
That's
and how
exactly
did he
where
steal
my
his
brain
wife?
went. Yeah, like why does ketchup come into play?
And it stole my
Yeah.
girlfriend and my rent money. That didn't
You
happen.
must be buying some bougie ass ketchup.
Yeah, probably.
Yes, it's spelled ketchup.
But no, the correct answer was apparently Rolling Rock made them lose a tooth back in 2013. And they do not elaborate. I have no idea. They don't explain. I want to know the answer, but I don't.
I'm going to guess it's just like they tried to shotgun a can that went horribly wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that.
Can you message people on Beer Advocate? Like, could we send them a message and say, hey, come on our podcast and tell us the story?
Probably. Although I will say, sometimes the reviews that I pull for these games are like years old, so who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know how old this review was. I don't remember. But this could have been like 2006. Oh, no, he referenced 2013, so.
That's true.
And he says back in, so it had to be at least 2014. I don't know.
God, I feel like the last time I had a Rolling Rock, I was drinking Lion's Head at Shippensburg.
I forget what it was, but I had a beer and then I had a Rolling Rock, and it made the Rolling Rock taste like peanut butter. It was the weirdest sensation ever, but I kind of liked it.
Peanut butter Rolling Rock.
Yeah.
There is a lot more in this guy's review, and it's mostly about lamenting the discontinuation of hams, which is fortunately not true. Hams is not being discontinued, but Molson Coors did recently announce that they are eliminating several of their offshoot economy brands, things like Keystone Ice or Special Premium, the things beyond like the core. But the original ham, so Ham Special Light, I think is being discontinued. But the original hams is still being made. You can still taste vinegar and apple juice and communion wafers and breath of a man who drinks natural ice till your heart's content.
As long as they never get rid of Coors Extra Gold. It was the only Coors product I could drink way back when I started drinking beer. And it came in a gold can, so you felt special buying it on money that you probably should have saved for ramen or something.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So I think we know how this turned out. Dan and Steph each tied for the win with 3 points apiece. Rob, still one single solitary point, but it's better than zero. Yeah, could have been zero. Could have been worse. You could have put bacon in your beer.
Oh, God.
You know.
That is true.
Thank you for playing. If you're watching this video on YouTube, thank you for doing so. Do the YouTube things. But this is, of course, the part of the podcast where we have to shout out to our most generous patrons on Patreon. We would like to thank the following individuals, beginning with Ben Mengel,
Oh, shit, I have pineapple.
Chris Mahoney,
I love how big it is.
Dana,
I'm a banana.
Sean Sullivan,
Let's go with that jizz.
PA Brew Review.
No.
No, okay, Topher Simmons,
What the fuck?
Jill Chivers,
Sports.
James Lamberg,
It's got a hair of Dutch.
Hera Dutch, Eric Dixon,
It's so tight.
Jen McDonald.
Oh, that was,
Oh, that's that weird one.
again, over and over and over and over and over and over.
Sorry,
and over.
Jen. Brian Mills.
Pizza.
Speaking of.
Yep.
And the one and only That's No Baloney, Joe Mansell.
Vindicated.
Vindicated. If you want to find out how you can get on this list and the other cool behind-the-scenes perks and help support the podcast, go to patreon.com/beerbusters. But next up, we're going to settle up our tab.
I'm going to order a chicken sandwich.
Dan's going to order a chicken sandwich.
Say, Yvonne, remember when I said I'd have to send away to NASA to calculate your bar tab?
Oh, yeah. We all had a good laugh, Mo.
The results came back today. You owe me $70 billion.
Saluton.
That's how you say hello in Esperanto. Esperanto. Very obscure language not many people know of. It was a failed experiment to be a universal language.
You're a filthy patak.
Not Klingon. If you want to learn a new language to really show us how much better you are, Rosetta Stone.
That got mean. That got real mean.
Rosetta Stone is where you need to go. Either you're better than us or you want to help pay it forward a little bit. Rosetta Stone has continuously set the standard in
Or you
learning.
want to communicate with more of the human race.
Yeah, that sounds way better than what I said. Rosetta Stone has continually set the standard in language learning to enable people to change their world. They have an innovative, technology-driven language learning solution that is used by thousands of schools, businesses, and government organizations, and just millions of average Joes around the world. They've got courses in 30 languages, whether you want to do Spanish, Mandarin, English, or a less prominent one like Swahili, Swedish, or Tagalog.
Tagalog. Maybe it's Tagalog.
Tagalog. That sounds better than Tagalog.
You know,
it's like playing tag with log. And if you want to start your language learning journey today, you want to head to rosettapodcast.com/beerbusters because they are offering listeners of Beerbusters a 24-month subscription for less than $8 a month. rosettapodcast.com/beerbusters. Learn a new language today.
Does anybody need tomatoes? Because I have too many. So if you want to meet up at some abandoned parking lot for tomatoes.
For some tomatoes.
Every year I try to grow tomatoes, and every year that I've had a garden, the tomatoes, I try to grow beefsteak because I like a slice of tomato, salt, and pepper, just eat it like that. And this year I put in 6 tomato plants thinking I'm going to get 1 or 2 tomatoes, and I'm just drowning in tomatoes over here that you can't see them. They're off camera right now, just piles in my office.
Everything out of frame is just tomatoes.
It is. It's literally everything's painted with tomatoes. It's amazing.
Oh,
You could make a tomato beer.
I've thought about that, but I just, and this might be something that you want to talk about on the podcast, but one of the things when I first started doing beer as a homebrewer, I'm like, you could add anything. Like I had a recipe put together for a meat beer that had, it was basically like, I wanted that irony flavor that you get from the like a rare steak or something. I wanted that to come out.
So you
in a
did
beer.
say meat beer.
Yes.
Bacon?
No bacon. Yeah. But so a tomato beer, just like, I don't know what base you have to go light on the base style, just because, or I mean, you could make a tomato stout, but it's just got to be half beer, half tomato in the fermenter.
Yeah. Well, we've had, there's pizza beer. There's the Mamma Mia pizza beer, which by all accounts is horrible.
But there was also a good pizza
But
beer.
we had the pizza beer from Pottstown United from Armstrong. Or was it when he was doing Armstrong?
I think it was pre-pub.
Pre-Pottstown, so Armstrong Ales. And that was mostly tomato and oregano was like the big flavor.
But it worked.
Yeah, I was good. I enjoyed it.
I traditionally don't like tomatoes. Like, I'm weird. I don't like tomatoes, but I like tomato flavors in things, and that was very tomato forward, and I was really happy with the way that tasted.
Did he put garlic in it too?
There may have been
Probably.
garlic in it.
Oh, see, that's something I can get behind. I love garlic.
Yeah,
garlic's
pretty good.
the best.
My wife will throw garlic in a pan and be like, "Oh man, something smells so good." She's like, "I'm just doing the garlic right now." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's amazing."
Yeah. That's like when we were recently in Ocean City. Dan and I, our mom and her boyfriend, and my girlfriend Jess. One night, Jess and I made dinner for everybody. We made a stir fry, and as soon as I put garlic in the pan, I think it was our mom was like, "Oh, that smells so good." I was like, "That's the key. Whenever you're cooking, just throw in garlic, and everyone would be like, "Oh, it smells amazing," because cooking garlic always smells good.
It does.
Shall we move on to our next beer?
Also, for the record, I was recording, so that technically was in the podcast.
Oh,
and I'll find
great.
a way to edit that in.
So just me rambling and
About tomatoes.
and stammering my way through.
Yeah, all about
About
tomatoes and how you're drowning in tomatoes.
Drowning in tomatoes.
Yes, drowning in tomatoes. At first, we were drowning in zucchini because we put in 2 plants and they exploded.
Oh,
I don't know what we
mean,
did
there's-
with this raised garden bed, but it just produces too much for 3 people to eat. So
There's
I
a
kept
number
trying
of
to give it-
jokes in there about how you were drowning in zucchinis.
See, I was going to make a more wholesome joke and say, do you have like the ooze from TGRI in your garden from Secret of the Ooze, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2?
TGRI?
Techno Global Research
Was that the
Industries.
company?
That was the
Oh,
company
I haven't
that made
seen
the
that
ooze.
movie.
That's why it
Gotta
said TGRI on the side of the canister.
I haven't seen the movie in got to be 20 years.
Yeah. There's a deep pool right there.
There it was.
I shouldn't be surprised, though. The amount of random information he's got in his brain is just absurd and mind-blowing.
Yeah, and mostly useless.
The beer was called That's Amore, but there's no description.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that some more. Yeah.
That's amore.
I think the title says it all.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what was in it.
I mean, you could probably also just text Steve.
was years ago. He may not even remember.
He's
That's
a
true.
Luddite. He doesn't.
That's
He
true.
probably doesn't have a cell phone anymore.
I can't say I blame him. There's times I wish I didn't have mine.
So there is a triple
Yes,
that
tripping home.
we have yet to crack open.
Yes, that is the most new beer that I have on tap. It's a Belgian triple. It's just a fun fact, and I'm not sure whether Holly and Tracy want me to mention this, but they thought when I said I was making a triple, that I was making a triple IPA. They thought for sure I was making something very hoppy. And then when I was like, well, no, it's a Belgian triple. They're like, okay, like it's going to taste like banana up front. And they're like, oh, it's not. And they hate IPAs. So when they drink it, they're like, oh, this is really good. I'm like, yeah, because it's not hoppy.
It's not an IPA. That's funny.
Ooh, I
it
love
smells
that
nice.
aroma. Yeah.
It's got the classic banana clovey Belgian-y sweet.
Oh, man.
He hates it again. You
He
know,
hates it again. He hates
his
it.
reaction.
I'm gonna vomit.
Smells like
And
you're
then
brewing
I'll-
a Goza.
And then I'll go meet up with you. I'll get some of your tomatoes, then I will throw your own tomatoes at you.
Oh, wow.
So
This is
my
nice.
my saison, which you got a chance to try at the Brewfest, it is like a lighter version of the triple. And so the problem was I put out the triple and then the double IPA, and so that satisfied everybody's need for a higher ABV beer. And then everybody stopped drinking the saison, even though it's a huge seller. It's one of the flagships because it's a huge seller at the brewery. And the type of yeast that I use for the saison makes it's a high ABV, but because of the slight Belgian characteristic, it hides the hot alcohol that you would expect from something that's, 8% or close to 8% with, less there, it doesn't have the biggest body for something that's that high in alcohol content. But so the Belgians, you don't have the saison with you, even though you got a chance to try it, Dan, at the Brewfest.
I did.
But
Joke's
you can
on
get an
everybody
idea
else.
of what it tastes like if you take the triple and then just only think about like a quarter or so of the flavor.
So taste it and then subtract 75% of what you're
That's right.
experiencing.
Do-
Okay.
Do that, as most people can do.
Mhm.
Just imagine flavors.
Yeah, I actually can. Tasting this, I get what you're saying. Like I can follow what you're saying. It does make sense.
I'm almost afraid to ask, and I've closed out my notes, and I'm too lazy to make the iPad
8.1.
Was it 8.1?
Yeah.
Goddamn.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not cracking double digits. Not too crazy. This is
No,
the kind
actually,
of-
I think my barley wine is the only one that I've made so far. I think that one goes 13%. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that's the only one I make that goes into the double digits.
This is a
So you
style
said
that
you guys have 12 taps.
We have 12 taps when they're all working. Our every once in a while you'll have a tap handle that has to have some repairs done on it, like a gas line leaks or something. But yeah, we have 12 taps. That was a whole lot of talking just to confirm that yes, what you said is true.
But for a small system, I mean, that's a lot of taps to fill. How often are you brewing?
I can brew anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week. And depending on the styles that I'm putting on, like I need to make our IPAs almost once a week just to make sure that, or once every 2 weeks just to make sure that they'll stay on, because that's what everybody wants to drink. But stuff like the amber ale and the other maltier beers, I brew them once every 2 to 3 weeks, and that keeps up with the demand. So yeah, I mean, we only have the 1-barrel system, so I have to brew much more often than you would if I had a much larger system. But it's not onerous, just given that we're not in the middle of a hugely populous area.
Do you think that any point down the road distribution might be in the cards? I mean, obviously you would need a bigger system for sure to be able to make that happen.
Right. Well, we either need a bigger system or we need to bring on another brewer to just make up on time.
Right.
Somebody can brew at the hours that I don't brew at. But it's something that, of course, we talk about, but I'm trying to dial in all the beers to close enough to perfection before we start farming them out to other places. Of course, I would love to see my beer show up, so go to some random bar and be like, oh, yeah, look, there's Devil's Eye beer. I made that beer.
I mean, I know a couple of seedy hotels you could probably distribute to.
It's funny. Sometimes I will sit at the bar and I'll be having a beer and somebody will be talking to the bartender about what they should have. And I'll either suggest to the bartender, like, hey, tell them to drink this beer, and then they'll know I'm the brewer. Or once they get the beer, after they've gotten about halfway through it or so, I'll just sidle up and I'll be like, so, did you like the beer? And they're like, oh yeah, it was pretty good. I'm like, well, I make it. Wouldn't you like to talk to me about it? Yeah. So it's much less creepy than that.
I was just going to say,
just me trying to gather information from people, just to get an idea of what people like, what they would, what other beers it's actually an opportunity. If something's not on and somebody's like, well, when's the dance floor, the Irish Red Ale coming back? And then I know that like there's a demand for something. I've left the Saison has lapsed for a couple of weeks, and I had one person point blank when he found out I was the brewer. He's like, you need to get making the Saison again, because that's the beer I keep coming in here for, and every time I come in, it's not on.
Got to give the people what they want, even if it's just one person who makes it vocal. But I can attest to the Saison being pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't have given you my card if not.
There you go. Must have been a good Saison. You could tell that guy, I'll make the Saison if you'll buy the whole barrel of it.
Yeah, right. I can imagine talking to the owners about that. It's like, this guy wants to buy the whole barrel of Saison. We're gonna have to. I mean, it's one of the more expensive beers to make, so.
I wonder. Like,
you serve it in a tulip glass, and
but still.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I genuinely wonder what that would. If you went into a place and you said, "Yeah, I want to buy the entire barrel of that batch of beer," what would that cost? Like, what would that be to the consumer?
Well, I guess it really depends on what, like, if they're gonna discount it at all for the
right.
Yeah, I mean, if
purchase,
if you're canning the whole barrel for one person, that's probably going to be pretty expensive.
Okay, if they're buying an entire barrel, they're taking it in kegs and bringing the keg. I am not canning an entire barrel of beer on our canning system.
Yeah. It depends on the method of delivery, determines the price.
Yeah.
If they roll up with a pickup truck and a vat on the back, and they're just like, hook up a hose.
I'm sorry, but you also have to buy the fermenter from us. That's how it goes, and you have to do all the kegging yourself.
You get a discount because there's no labor involved.
Very wholesale. Very wholesale.
Right, exactly. This triple is great. It's oh God, it's so dialed in. The bananas there, the cloves there. It's not. I mean, 8.1% is kind of modest, I would say, for the style.
For the style.
Oh yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's close to 8. Like, it feels like it's got a full body, but it works. It definitely works.
It has that, though. Every time you drink like a high alcohol Belgian style, you don't get the alcohol heat necessarily, but you get that Belgian-y sweetness, and then like the more of that you get, you're like, oh, there's booze in this.
Yeah. It's kind of like it hides. It takes a few sips for you to realize what is actually happening, and then it's too late.
It's one of those beers where you're like, I have to buy 20 pounds of candy sugar. So I have a bunch of rocks of candy sitting in the brewery.
There are worse things you could have on hand.
Yeah.
This is true.
Well, if people want to learn more about Devil's Eye, where should they go, Rob?
To the brewery.
I love that's the best answer. I don't think anybody has ever actually said that as the answer. Yeah. That's perfect.
I mean, that makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, we have a Facebook page. Just look up Devil's Eye Brewing Co. And that's where the owners will post most of the information, events that are going on. We have I think they do trivia every Wednesday, and then we have music most Fridays and Saturdays. So the Facebook page is the best place to go. We do have a regular website. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly what the address is, but I usually just go to the Facebook page to check out to see what the owners have posted. So that's probably the best place to get any information that you need about the brewery.
Yeah, plus it's easier to update at that point.
Devil'sEyeBrewingCo.com if anyone is interested. I did want to ask, and that's what I'm looking at it now, if there was online ordering on the website. And there is a button that says order online. And it takes you to a Toast tab. So you can order pickup, I guess.
Nice. Get the pizza
through the website.
Pizza's
Definitely
always good.
Yeah.
Fresh made dough.
Fresh made dough,
sound like an
locally
advertisement.
No, fresh made dough, locally grown tomatoes.
There you go.
Piled up in my office.
Yeah. And there's cheese curds. I love cheese curds.
Oh gosh, we make a poutine burger that's topped with cheese curds and gravy. It is fantastic.
That sounds really good.
I'll be there in an hour.
Yeah.
Really good. I think it takes more than an hour to get
It'll
there.
be abandoned
no.
because we're not open on Sunday.
Yeah.
I'll be there tomorrow. No, I won't. I'm in
Also, it'll be more than an hour till you get there.
Listen, if I'm driving out for a poutine burger, I'll get there in an hour.
And on that note,
any police that are listening to this, you know it's a joke. Looking at you, Tom. Well, while you are on the internet looking at Devil's Eye Brewing and figuring out which pizza you're going to order and whatnot, and or poutine burger, don't forget to check out Beer Busters, Twitter and Instagram at Beer Busters, Facebook Beer Busters Podcast. There's beerbusterspodcast.com. Don't forget to add /shop and get some cool branded
merch.
Stuff. YouTube.com/Beerbusters Podcast. You have to add the word podcast because otherwise it ain't us. And Patreon.com/Beerbusters. Get yourself access to Last Call, which we're about to record, and we have a special beer saved for Last Call. And I'm very excited to crack this one open. And Rob is so confused and or playing coy.
I think it's the first one.
Yeah.
Oh man, as little as $1 a month gets you access to all the behind the scenes goodies and Last Call. Rob, I want to thank you, man, for the awesome beers, for coming on the show, and it's been a hell of a time. You rock. The beers are fantastic, and I'm so glad we were able to do this.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you guys having me on for sure.
Oh, of course. I'm really glad it worked out. And the day that I wanted to be a civilian, this was the one card that I should have given out. Fuck everybody else.
Oh.
I don't mean that. Every beer that I had there was...
everyone else who was at that beer fest, you're never going to be on our podcast.
Honestly...
And if you were before, you won't be again.
Yeah.
You're going to delete the episodes.
Yep.
Gonna scrub it from the internet.
That'd be a lot of work.
That's not true. I'm the one that does all the booking. Listen to them.
I was going to say, this is like the one guest that Steph didn't book. Or at least didn't initially contact.
Didn't initiate. But yeah, definitely. We would not have lasted this long without you, Steph, and your networking skills. So thank you for all of that.
Look, they're being nice to me.
I know. Gonna save comment and just say that this.
Yeah, am I dying?
This unfortunately brings us to the end. What the fuck?
Oh, that's nice. Is this the remix? I didn't know we changed it.
Talk about post-production yet again. It's only that clip. Anyway, whatever.
Just leave it. It's beautiful. It's art.
I like it.
Oh, also, we were on the tape. I was wrong. It was not Heinz. It was Heineken.
Yes,
I was wrong.
Yes, we couldn't obviously record doing that because that would have been very complicated.
Right. Well, I am a confused Dan Baker wondering what the fuck is playing through my headphones right now, joined by my co-host and Perologist.
You know, these people actually listened to it. They all knew it was Heineken and not Heinz.
I know, but I needed to admit it. And the Demented and Fermented.
Yeah, I said Heineken, definitely. I knew it from the beginning.
Squids.
No squids are harmed in the making of this episode. We'll see you next time.
Or baby chicks.
The chickens are all locked away.